So if you're watching these videos, then you are likely an operational Australian or somebody with experience in the military, first responder, or emergency services space. Whoopsie. And what we tend to do is we tend to think in extremes. We tend to think in polar opposites, right? You're either the best or the worst. It's either black or it's white, right? We like to think and operate in the extreme, right? I do it or I don't do it. I'm really good or I'm fucking terrible. And when it comes to self-image or your self-perception, we're either highly egotistical, arrogantly overcompensating, or we are horrendously insecure and self-punishing. And I've done both of those, and I've done everything in between. But the reality is you're actually not as good or as bad as you think you are, right? And I want to give you two examples. So the first one is, because I got kicked out of the dog cell in my special operations unit, there was a period of time where I just thought I was the biggest piece of shit in the planet, and everyone at my unit knew who I was, and they hated me, and I just, my name was going around, and everyone was talking about me all the time because of how much they hated me. Obviously not the case, right? Definitely, plenty of people didn't like me there, and probably still don't. But who gives a shit? But when I got out of the military about a year and a bit after I went through that crisis, and probably I think it was about a year after I'd been booted from the dogs, getting out of the military, I overcompensated, and I was like, man, I'm a fucking special forces dog handler. I'm the shit. Like I am. There is no one that knows dogs like I do. I am the best dog handler in the world, and because of my education in special operations, I am amazing, right? And people should be fucking grateful to be near me. And then I went to a Pat Stewart seminar. So Pat Stewart's a former unit guy from where I used to work, and he's pretty big in the dog space, very technical, competent guy. And I went to a seminar of his because I was like, I'll just sort of see what's out there. And I got there and I was like, fuck, I know nothing. And I just went opposite again. I went from like God's gift to fucking dogs and dog training to the opposite. I was like, I know nothing about dogs. I am fucking useless. I'm a piece of shit. And the other example is, so if you know who GBRS are, so the Global Battlefield Research Solutions, bunch of like SEAL Team 6, Naval Special Warfare Development Group, the Navy SEALs in the US, and they've got this little consulting, sort of training group. And they first came out, and I remember I watched a few of their videos, and they were doing some, CQB stuff, and that was kind of the bread and butter of where I'd come from. And I was watching it, and I was like, whatever, mate, I can do that. I've done that. And I was like, I could fucking do this. I could start this group, you know what I mean? I could do my own version of that consulting or whatever. And then this thought hit me, and I was like, no, you can't, you idiot. You were the worst operator in the world. Everyone hated you. You're a piece of shit in that unit, and your career ended in an absolute nightmare. Like you're not that guy at all, right? Now, neither of those things was true in either case. I was not God's gifts to dogs and dog handling, but I was also not some piece of shit that had no idea about dogs and dog training. I was still a fairly competent former Australian Special Operations dog handler that had some pretty good knowledge around dogs, and I was able to use that. Wasn't as technical and as as good an educator and communicator as Pat Stewart, but I was still pretty good, right? But I also wasn't a piece of shit, right? Same as the GBRS thing. I'm not a former dev group guy that's done 1 billion trips overseas and has this, this crazy knowledge about CQB and all the things that they've done on operations. But I also am not some piece of shit that was like a pretend fake operator that everybody hated, right? I was a guy that can do all the skills likely that they can do, not to the same standard as them, but I was still a pretty competent, capable guy in that unit. And no one can take either of those things away from me, right? So it's very easy to look at yourself and think that you either are the best in the world or the worst in the world. And sometimes we don't give ourselves that honest appreciation for what and who we truly are, because we think in our mind, if we have this mentality that there's more work to be done, that if there's some sort of incomplete version of us, if there's something that's not good enough, that's not up to standard, that we're just the worst thing in the world, right? You're allowed to have things about yourself that are not the most amazing, but realize that you're also not the worst in the world. You're just somebody who's fallible, you're pretty good, you know what to do, and you can go up and down, you can operate somewhere in the middle there without being the best or the worst. So kind of get comfortable with the fact that you are going to have to operate in that gray space for the rest of your life, right? That black and white mentality can serve you sometimes, but when it comes to your self-assessment, I don't think having that black and white mentality is the best thing, because seeing yourself as the best or the worst is not a healthy endeavor, and it's not conducive to living a good, healthy, stable life, which is what your mission is, to live a long, healthy, stable life.